I'm a writer, and my current work in progress has dual points of view with both characters in their early 30s. One of them is a man, and I want to make sure I do him justice. I thought this would be a good place to ask this general question to start. Story 1. Personally, I started to care less about what others thought of me and focused on what truly made me happy. I accepted who I was and stopped trying to please others so much. Story 2. There is a gravitational shift that happens around age 27. Before then, things pull you, such as jobs, relationships, and family. After this point, you start pulling things toward yourself, including career choices, people you truly like, and your own self-identity. Story 3. I honestly care less and spend much less time in my head than I did in my 20s. Positive, more self-belief, less tolerance for nonsense. I notice women in their 20s are actually interested in me, unlike in my 20s when you were competing for a date. People take me more seriously and I can speak with more authority. I am aware that not much else really matters apart from family, friends, and health. Negatives. I get injured more and need active recovery to heal. My knees crack a little more and I am less flexible. I am aware my family is getting older and won't be here forever. I am less willing to spend on fun things. There is pressure to make major life decisions, such as marriage. I don't see friends nearly as much. Story 4. When I hit my 30s, I started to reflect more rather than think I had so much time. I began to value the time I had and became much more intentional with it. Story 5. Interesting prompt. I would say that men in their 30s are more contemplative. They still have energy and strength, but less than in their 20s. It's more about honing than powering through, physically and mentally. They tend to be much more intentional than in their 20s. Less of the let's see what happens, and more this is the plan. They tend to be more principled and more intense about those principles. The male urge to run off in the woods is stronger, so they crave more isolation and independence. They invest more heavily but in fewer things and people. As a picture of a man, think a few light wrinkles around the eyes and some stray gray hairs on an otherwise strong frame that doesn't recover quite as fast. Story 6. Men in their 20s are really just boys, mostly. Set aside some of your ego, make some money, learn to absorb losses, take control of your own destiny, have an actual relationship with a woman, and it is no surprise why men in their 30s are the catch, while men in their 20s are just a promise. Story 7. It used to be widely understood that your 30s largely define who you are going to be in life, but the current generation views it as the new 20s. Story 8. For most of us, we start to process things more slowly and do not have instant reactions to everything. We care less about what others think about us. I feel like a lot of men just become more nonchalant as they age. This is an overly simplistic view, but it is my experience and observation during my 42 years on this planet. Story 9. I'm 32 right now, and the main difference I've noticed from 5 or more years ago is that I make much more mindful decisions. I don't focus so much on whether something will make me happy right now in the moment. Instead, I consider whether it will make me happy in the long term or if it is something that will benefit my family and me in the future. In short, I no longer sacrifice tomorrow's happiness for today's momentary happiness. I still make plenty of mistakes. However, I don't feel like I am completely wise yet. Story 10. It's going to come down to how your character responds to aging. Some men are stuck in the same patterns as in their 20s. Some are now family men with wives. Some feel like time has run out and life just is what it is. Some are going through an existential crisis. One universal realization is knowing that you are not the future anymore and that you can have accomplished things by now. Story 11. Way more stable. At 24 to 25, you start gaining a foothold in the prefrontal cortex development. At 27 to 28, you get married and have children. Between 30 and 32, you find your niche either at a job or in life generally. Moving forward in that decade, you begin to glide and accumulate expertise or wisdom. Story 12. When I was in my 30s, I started thinking more long-term. It is a cliché to say that young people think they will live forever, but even if you do not consciously acknowledge this, we all sort of believe it when we are young. Once you reach a certain milestone age, and for many men it is around 30, you begin to realize that you will not live forever. If you want to make the best of the time you have, you better start doing it now. Story 13. You notice very quickly your recovery has doubled for everything. But on the bright side, your worries about trying to impress people fade because you realize you have spent a decade doing that. Story 14. In their 20s, the priority is pursuing a mate and exploring freedom with some financial means. This means they often go out to parties and functions. When they come to work afterward, it might be primarily to earn money to support these activities. In their 30s, if they have already found a mate, their focus shifts to making more money, which translates to focusing more on their career. The partying tends to decrease somewhat. Story 15. In my 20s, I had many concerns, and life felt far less settled. What was I going to do for my career? Who was I going to meet as my life partner? What did I want out of life? In my 30s, I have found an amazing wife, defined what I want for my career, made progress toward my goals, and know that I want to be present with my family, friends, and community. I feel more confident in my decisions today than I did in my 20s when I felt much insecurity about how things would turn out. Story 16. I felt like I was always becoming more like myself and knew better what I liked and what works for me. I became more confident. Story 17. I stopped drinking as much and finding myself in difficult situations. I am not sober, and I know early on when to step back or walk away. Not everyone changes. I know many people in their mid-30s who still need to grow up, but they would probably say the same about me. We are just walking different paths. Story 18. A lot of hopes and dreams from my 20s have been given up in my 30s. Also, many things I hoped would not happen in my 30s have happened now that I am in my 30s. I am now trying to come to terms with that. Story 19. I don't really remember my 20s or 30s other than it was constant stress, trying to sort out a career, moving, and so on. I do remember in my late 30s thinking it was time to start looking for a partner to settle down with. I had never wanted a serious girlfriend until around then. Not a lot of changes in those 2 decades, honestly. It has been hitting me hard in my 40s, though. Finite time, what do I really want to do with my life, and so on. All those heavy questions are weighing on me. I still don't have any answers. Story 20. Men often spend their 20s emulating others who have traits they want. Ironically, confidence is the sexiest trait of all, and in your 30s, you start to become secure in the man you have become. Hence, confidence. Story 21. Maybe this was just me, but in your 20s, it feels like things just happen and come your way or go with the flow. Do you want to hang out tomorrow? Cool. Let's go out for happy hour after work. Kind of feels like the cast of How I Met Your Mother or New Girl. In your 30s, you have to plan things out more. Otherwise, you will never see people you care about. Weeks or months in advance. Everyone's schedules get more complex and chaotic. Everyone seems to find a routine that they do not want to deviate from, like gym times, weekly events, and especially bedtimes. Story 22. If they partied, did not work hard, did not study, were careless with money, chased the wrong women, and did not take care of their health in their 20s, in their 30s they will either do a complete turnaround or double down on their mistakes, resulting in becoming depressed, addicted, and bitter. If they avoided all those bad things in their 20s, they will typically go from strength to strength and become the best kind of person. Story 23. Personality-wise. A man in his 30s usually begins to develop a quiet sense of stoicism. He accepts things as they are. For example, a person walking down the street sees a homeless man, nods in acknowledgement, but looks forward without relief or a timid expression. A 20-year-old walking down the street sees a homeless man and tries to avoid eye contact. He checks his pocket for change just in case. His eyes dart up and side to side, hoping not to seem like a bad person. Story 24. In my teens, I thought I could do everything. In my 20s, I thought I could do anything. In my 30s, I knew I had to defend what I had created because no one but me valued it. Story 25. I think men in their 30s are better at thinking through the consequences of their actions. It does not necessarily lead to more cautious decision-making, but I believe it leads to better decision-making because of more life experience. Story 26. In your 20s, you would go out on Friday, stay up till 3 a.m., and still hit brunch on Saturday. You can still party in your 30s, but you choose not to. You stop trying to keep up with 30 people. You have your circle, a few solid friends you would call at 2 a.m. That is it. Quality over quantity, all day. You stop trying to impress everybody. You have failed at a few things, maybe gotten rejected, but you have also survived it all. You walk into a room not needing to prove anything. Story 27. In my 20s, I made poor choices because I did not know better. Now, in my 30s, I make the same poor choices because I know better but still enjoy the ride. Story 28. I matured in my 30s compared to my 20s on a whole range of issues. I became more responsible both at work and at home. I got out of the endless cycle of credit card debt. I started traveling the world. I bought a home. I finished school that I had been dragging along for a decade. I started pursuing my hobbies, like acting, with genuine commitment. Basically, I got up and became my own hero instead of expecting someone else to save me. Story 29. Fatherhood hits you like a rock and often happens around that transition. I went from an independence, freedom, and accomplishment mindset to a responsibility, provider, and stability mindset. Story 30. In my 20s, new technology intrigued me. In my 30s, when something new comes out, I say, I am not learning that. Story 31. Men in their 30s have typically begun to develop much more emotional intelligence than those in their 20s. Story 32. From a female perspective, men in their 30s are more emotionally unavailable and know what they want more clearly. Men in their 20s take more risks when it comes to love and may be more desperate, depending on how you look at it. Story 33. I was not serious about my career in my 20s and worked in low-paying retail roles before deciding on information technology. I became more serious about my career and earning more for my family in my 30s. I became a father at 34, so I had to earn more for my family. However, I felt like a failure and believed I still did not have a worthwhile career. Story 34. Relationship-wise, I thought I wanted a committed relationship when I was in my teens and 20s, but through my 30s, I realized it is fine to just pursue casual sex or be a sugar daddy. Whatever floats your boat. Habits also become a cornerstone. Walking my dog 1 to 2 hours a day has meant walking nearly 15,000 kilometers, 10,000 miles, over the past 9 years and has helped fitness feel effortless. Story 35. Not really that much. I would not alter their behavior based on the difference between 20s and 30s. It is really down to the individual person's life circumstances rather than their age in terms of their physical capability or general maturity. Story 36. It is like being in a boat with a broken paddle on the ocean. Your difficult mother and intoxicated father gave it to you. You can exchange the paddle for almost anything, even your hands or a spoon. You will progress twice as fast toward the land. However, 30 years with a broken paddle creates deeply ingrained challenges. It is the worst and most difficult way of life. Story 37. Physically, you ache a bit more, lose your body shape, and gain weight more easily. Hair thins and a few gray hairs start to appear. I am 37 years old. That all probably started at 35. Story 38. More selective with how I spend my time and money, focusing on quality friends over quantity. This has also led to more relationships and dates. I can't vouch for the quality of those relationships, but they are definitely happening more than in my 20s. I got dumped yesterday. Story 39. In my early 20s, I wanted to do a lot, but I had no money and was worried about getting fired. In my late 20s, I still wanted to do a lot, had a better income, and was more comfortable in my position at work or within my industry. In my 30s, I wanted to do less, had even more income, and was better at saving. Story 40. In my early to mid-20s, I was actively and outwardly hornier than a Catholic rabbit. My ex and I had sex literally daily and often multiple times daily. I commented on other girls' breasts, butts, waists, and how good they would be to be intimate with to my ex. I wonder why my ex dumped me. I guess I will never know. But I was very horny. Around 27 or 28, I stopped being so actively horny. I still get aroused sometimes, but I am not out with the guys saying things like, "Hey man, think I could convince that girl to let me touch her?" Or, "Think I could get her to sleep with me?" anymore. I was actually a jerk in my 20s, just without the Axe body spray. I am not completely mature, but I have real issues to deal with now, and a wife, so most of those days are behind me. I still go out with the guys, not to bars, but we shoot guns in a field and drink bourbon by a fire. Now we talk about real topics, not body conversations about girls with nice breasts. Story 41. I have written 3 unpublished crime fiction books featuring the same set of characters. I'm not sure if I wrote them well, so consider this just my perspective. People do not change much in terms of basic personality as they age. What changes are their life circumstances and the challenges they face. So, if your character tends to experience depression, the plot should reflect this. Does that make sense? Story 42. With age, men tend to start losing the live free, die young mentality. They become more careful but also more confident. They stop announcing their plans ahead of time and cease seeking validation. Between the ages of 30 and 40, they transition from knowing who they are to accepting what they will never be. Before 30, people try to figure out what to do with their lives. They have not yet decided who they want to be. Some delay this decision longer than others. Whether they admit it or not, they seek validation for their opinions. They make decisions based on what the collective would most approve of because they are not yet fully independent. Story 43. If a man focuses on his personal development, he improves certain qualities of being a man. Stoicism, problem solving, emotional control. I do not give AF **** attitude. Sexual drive control. Makes better decisions. Story 44. I have learned to let go of things that do not really matter in the long run. It is just not worth getting hung up over things you have no control over. Story 45. Men in their 20s are not fully developed human beings literally. They are still growing. The frontal lobe of their brain does not become fully formed until around age 26. The frontal lobe is the center for critical thinking. Many men in their 20s are not able to think as critically as men in their 30s. This is not to say that men in their 30s always think critically, just that men in their 20s may not be able to. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.